My name is Daniel, and until recently, I thought I was living a blessed life. I had a wife I loved deeply, a younger brother I trusted, and a simple but happy home. Life was not perfect, but it felt good enough. Every morning I woke up next to my wife, Emma, and felt grateful for the little world we had built together. Emma and I had been married for 5 years. We met during college, fell in love quickly, and believed our bond was unbreakable. She was kind, caring, and supportive. At least that's what I always thought. We didn't have children yet, but we often talk about starting a family soon. I dreamed of becoming a father and raising kids with her. My younger brother, Michael, was also an important part of my life. He was charming, funny, and a little reckless, but I always looked out for him. I helped with his studies, supported him through difficult times, and defended him whenever he got into trouble. Our parents often said I spoiled him too much, but to me, he was more than just a brother. He was my best friend. Family was everything to me. We had dinners together, celebrated birthdays, and spent holidays under one roof. On weekends, Michael would visit us, and Emma would cook his favorite meals. I never thought twice about it. To me, it was just family bonding. Looking back now, I realize those were the calm days before the storm. At that time, I believe I had a loyal wife, a trustworthy brother, and a secure marriage. My heart was full of love and trust, and I never imagined that betrayal could come from the two people I cherished the most. If someone had warned me then, I would have laughed at the idea. But life has a way of showing you truths you don't want to see. At first, everything still felt normal. Emma smiled at me every morning, cooked meals, and asked about my day. But slowly, I began to notice small changes that made me uneasy. They were not big things at the beginning, just little signs that felt strange. She started spending more time on her phone. Sometimes, she would turn the screen away when I walked into the room. If I asked who she was texting, she would simply say, "Just a friend from work," and quickly change the subject. I trusted her, so I tried not to think much about it. Then, Emma began making excuses to stay out late. She would say she had extra work, or she wanted to meet her friend for dinner. At first, I believed her. After all, she had always been honest with me before. But the more it happened, the more uncomfortable I felt. Another thing I noticed was how different she acted when my brother, Michael, was around. He still visited us often, but now I saw a strange spark in her eyes whenever he entered the room. They laughed together too much, shared private jokes I didn't understand, and sometimes whispered to each other. When I asked what was so funny, they both gave vague answers. I told myself I was imagining things. Michael was my brother, and Emma was my wife. Why would I ever doubt them? Still, my heart began to feel heavy. I couldn't shake the thought that something wasn't right. At night, while Emma slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Doubts filled my mind like dark clouds. Was I just being insecure, or was there something more? I pushed the feelings aside, convincing myself that love and trust were stronger than suspicion. But deep inside, the cracks had already started to appear. The doubts inside me kept growing, no matter how hard I tried to ignore them. I wanted to believe that my wife and my brother would never betray me, but the small signs became harder to explain away. One evening, I walked past Emma while she was sitting on the couch, typing on her phone. I caught a quick glimpse of a message before she locked the screen. It said, "I miss you already." When I asked who it was, she smiled nervously and said, "Just Sarah from work." Something inside me told me she was lying, but I forced myself to stay quiet. Another time, I came home early from work. Emma wasn't expecting me, and I found her on a phone call in the kitchen. Her voice was soft, almost romantic, and she said, "I can't wait to see you again." When she saw me standing there, she jumped and ended the call quickly. She explained it was a friend going through a breakup. I wanted to believe her, but her eyes told a different story. The moment that truly broke me happened on a rainy Saturday afternoon. I had forgotten my wallet at home and returned from the store earlier than planned. As I entered the house quietly, I heard laughter coming from the living room. When I walked in, I froze. Emma and Michael were sitting too close on the couch, whispering to each other. His hand brushed against hers, and they looked more than just family. They jumped apart when they saw me. Emma's face turned pale, and Michael looked guilty. My heart dropped to the floor. I didn't even need words. The silence told me everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. The picture of them together replayed in my mind over and over again. My chest felt heavy, and my stomach twisted with pain. The truth was no longer hiding in the shadows. It was standing right in front of me. I knew then that I couldn't keep pretending. The suspicions I had tried to bury had finally turned into proof, and my world, which once felt safe and whole, was beginning to collapse. I couldn't carry the weight of silence any longer. The images of Emma and Michael together on the couch haunted me. My heart felt crushed, and my mind was filled with questions. I needed answers, even if they broke me completely. That evening, after dinner, I asked Emma to sit with me in the living room. My voice was calm, but inside, I was shaking. "Emma," I said, looking into her eyes, "I need the truth. What is going on between you and Michael?" Her face turned pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. Finally, tears welled in her eyes, and she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Daniel." My chest tightened. Hearing those words was like a knife cutting into me. She admitted it. The late nights, the phone calls, the messages, it was all with Michael. She told me she never planned for it to happen, that she felt lonely when I was busy with work, and somehow one mistake led to another. She kept saying it was an accident, that she didn't mean to hurt me. But to me, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal. I sat there in silence, my hands trembling. My own brother, the person I had trusted the most after her. My mind screamed in anger, but my body felt frozen. Later, I confronted Michael too. At first, he denied everything, but when I told him Emma had already confessed, his shoulders dropped. He muttered, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." His words felt empty. That night, I locked myself in the bedroom away from Emma. I could hear her crying outside the door, begging me to forgive her, but forgiveness felt impossible. My heart was shattered, and the foundation of my life was broken. Weeks passed after the confrontation, but the pain inside me did not fade. I lived in the same house as Emma, but it felt like we were strangers. I barely spoke to her, and when I did, my words were cold. I couldn't look at her without remembering her betrayal. One evening, Emma came into the room, her face pale and her hands shaking. She said softly, "Daniel, I need to tell you something." My heart sank, because her tone told me it was not good news. I stayed silent, waiting. She took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm pregnant." The words hit me like a storm. For a moment, I just stared at her, unable to react. Part of me wanted to believe the child was mine. We were still married, after all, but then the darker thought crept in. The baby could belong to Michael. "Whose child is it, Emma?" I asked, my voice trembling. Tears streamed down her face as she said, "I don't know. It could be yours or it could be his." Those words destroyed me. My hands shook as anger and sadness mixed together inside me. How could my own wife not know if the baby growing inside her was mine or my brother's? For weeks, the question tortured me. Finally, I demanded a DNA test after the baby was far enough along for it to be done. Waiting for the results felt like living in hell. My chest was heavy, and I barely slept. Deep inside, I already feared the truth. When the results came, they confirmed my worst nightmare. The baby was Michael's, not mine. Emma cried uncontrollably, begging me to forgive her, telling me we could raise a child together as if nothing had happened. But to me, this was not just a betrayal anymore. It was a complete destruction of the life I once knew. The woman I had loved and the brother I had trusted had given me the deepest wound of my life. And now, that wound had a heartbeat. Not long after the truth about the baby came out, Emma's mother, Mrs. Collins, came to visit us. I thought she would be angry at her daughter for destroying our marriage, or at least ashamed of what had happened. But instead, her reaction shocked me more than anything. She sat down across from me, her eyes full of seriousness, and said, "Daniel, I know you're hurt. I know mistakes were made, but the baby is innocent." I stared at her in disbelief. She continued, "You've always been the responsible one in this family. Michael is too immature, and Emma, well, she made a mistake. But you're a good man. You should raise this baby as your own." Her words felt like poison. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "You're asking me to raise my brother's child?" I asked, my voice filled with anger. Mrs. Collins didn't even flinch. "Yes," she said firmly. "If people find out the truth, our family's name will be ruined. Do you want the baby to grow up without a father? Do you want Emma to be shamed? You can fix this by accepting the child." I felt my chest burn with rage. Instead of holding her daughter accountable, she was trying to push the burden onto me. It wasn't enough that I had been betrayed. Now she wanted me to sacrifice my dignity too. Emma sat silently beside her mother, tears in her eyes, nodding as if she agreed. She whispered, "Daniel, please, we can move on if you just accept the baby." I shook my head, my fists clenched. I couldn't believe that the people who had hurt me so deeply were now asking me to clean up their mess. At that moment, I realized how truly alone I was in this fight. After Mrs. Collins's demand, my mind became a battlefield. I felt torn between anger, sadness, and confusion. Every thought I had seemed to fight against another. Part of me wanted to walk away immediately. Why should I stay with a woman who betrayed me? Why should I raise a child that wasn't mine, a child created through my brother's betrayal? It felt unfair and humiliating. My pride screamed for me to leave and never look back. But then another thought followed. The baby was innocent. It hadn't asked to be born into this mess. Did I really have the heart to let an innocent child suffer because of the sins of its parents? I imagined the baby growing up without a father figure, facing whispers and judgment from society. My heart ached at the thought. I spoke to my parents about it. My father told me, "Son, you don't owe anyone this burden. Walk away and protect your dignity." But my mother said, "Think about the child, Daniel. You've always had a big heart. Don't punish the baby for their mistakes." The more advice I received, the more confused I became. Even my friends gave me mixed opinions. Some told me to divorce Emma immediately, while others said forgiveness could be a form of strength. At night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, asking myself the same questions over and over. Was I strong enough to raise another man's child? Or was I weak if I stayed? Would leaving make me selfish? Or would it finally free me? I felt trapped between my sense of responsibility and my shattered pride. My heart wanted peace, but my mind could not decide which path would bring it. The war inside me grew louder each day, and I knew a final decision was coming soon. The pressure inside me finally exploded. I couldn't keep carrying away the silence, and I knew I had to face the people who had caused this pain. First, I confronted Michael. I found him at his apartment, sitting casually as if nothing had happened. My anger boiled over. "You ruined my life," I shouted. "You betrayed me, your own brother." Michael looked guilty, but also defensive. "Daniel, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Emma and I, it just happened." "Just happened?" I snapped. "You slept with my wife and got her pregnant, and you call that a mistake? That's not something that just happens. That's betrayal." I demanded that he take responsibility for the baby, but he shook his head. "I'm not ready to be a father. You're better at that stuff than me. You should raise it." His words stabbed me like a knife. He was willing to throw away his responsibility and push it on to me. Later, I faced Mrs. Collins again. She repeated the same argument, that I was the only one strong enough to raise a child and protect the family's honor. Her words felt like chains, trying to trap me in a role I never asked for. And then there was Emma. She fell to her knees in front of me, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, please forgive me. I made a terrible mistake. But I still love you. We can move forward if you just give us another chance." Her words broke something inside me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask her why she destroyed the life we had built. But all I felt was emptiness. Standing there, looking at the three of them, my wife, my brother, and my mother-in-law, I realized the truth. None of them were truly sorry. They only wanted me to fix what they had broken. And in that moment, I knew I could not carry their sins forever. A decision had to be made. The days after the confrontations were the hardest of my life. I carried a heavy silence inside me, but I knew I couldn't avoid the truth any longer. A choice had to be made, one that would decide the rest of my life. I sat alone in my bedroom, thinking about everything. The love I once had for Emma, the trust one once had in Michael, and the respect I once had for my marriage, all of it was gone. What was left was pain, shame, and anger. Yet in the middle of it all was an unborn child, innocent and unaware of the mess it had been born into. I thought about what it would mean to raise the baby. I would have to look at the child every day and remember the betrayal. Could I truly love it as my own? Or would I grow bitter with time? That fear haunted me. On the other hand, if I walked away, I would lose everything I had built with Emma, and people might call me heartless. But deep down, I knew that staying would destroy me even more. I had already lost too much of myself. One evening, I gathered Emma, Michael, and Mrs. Collins in the living room. My voice was steady, though my heart was heavy. "I've made my decision," I said. "I will not raise a child that is not mine. Michael, this is your responsibility." "Not mine. Emma, our marriage is over. And Mrs. Collins, stop expecting me to fix the mess your daughter created." Emma broke into tears, begging me to reconsider. Michael looked away, ashamed but still silent. Mrs. Collins shook her head, muttering that I was being selfish. But for the first time in a long while, I felt strong. I chose my dignity. I chose to walk away. The day I left that house, I felt both pain and relief. Packing my bags was like packing away years of love and memories, but I knew there was no other way forward. I had given my heart, my loyalty, and my trust, and all of it had been broken. Stay would have only destroyed what little strength I had left. At first, the silence of my new life was heavy. I moved into a small apartment and spent many nights staring at the walls, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. But slowly, I began to breathe again. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life. Emma tried to call me many times, begging for forgiveness, but I never answered. Michael avoided me completely. Mrs. Collins spread stories about me being cold and heartless, but I didn't care anymore. Their opinions no longer mattered. What mattered was that I had chosen myself. I realized that forgiveness doesn't always mean staying, and strength doesn't always mean carrying a burden that isn't yours. Sometimes the strongest thing you could do is walk away. As days turned into weeks, I started focusing on rebuilding my life. I spent more time with my parents and with friends who truly cared for me. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I don't know what future awaits Emma, Michael, or the baby. Maybe one day that child will look for me, and if that day comes, I will tell the truth with kindness. But for now, I've closed that chapter of my life. I walked to the fire of betrayal and came out scarred, but still standing. And that, I realized, was my true victory.